So I'm just sitting there Friday night. I'm out on vacation in Colorado at Red Rocks to watch a concert, and I see a notification on my phone that I thought was just from an NBA Sentinel account. It wasn't a real account that said the Knicks just acquired Karl-Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo. And I just straight up didn't believe it. I put it away, maybe took it out a couple minutes later, and I'm seeing my phone blow up. People texting me, more notifications rolling in. And I'm like, am I in a simulation right now? As of course, the most random trade in NBA history, I think, goes down when I'm not even in my home state. And yeah, the Knicks actually acquired Karl-Anthony Towns for Randle, DiVincenzo, and a first-round pick. Daquan Jeffries had to go to the Charlotte Hornets. And I know I'm a couple days late, but since I'm now back at my setup, I'm going to be grading this trade and giving my thoughts and analysis from a Knicks fan as well. So yeah, when this trade went down, I was like, what is going on? Why would the Knicks do this? They just picked up Mikal Bridges this offseason, who was the fourth Nova Knick on the team. So why move Donte DiVincenzo, who hit the biggest shot of the season last year in Game 2 against Philadelphia before the season even started? And Donte was going to be up there in the Sixth Man of the Year race. He's one of the best three-point shooters in his role in all of the NBA. Julius Randle took a shot on the Knicks when they missed out on Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the 2019 offseason, and he ended up being a multiple-time All-NBA forward for the Knicks over the last 4 seasons. And I know he got hurt last year, which cut his 2024 season short. He got hurt in January with a shoulder injury, but the fact that the Knicks traded him away before the season even started, when we knew Mitchell Robinson was going to be out till pretty much December or January, really made me think that the Knicks were panicking with all this injury news. And I'm sure when you look at it for the Timberwolves side of things, they drafted Karl-Anthony Towns back in 2015 with the #1 overall pick. He spent 9 years there with a lot of dysfunctional seasons, a lot of different coaches, general managers, and players around him, and he never requested a trade. So the fact that Minnesota did this, they traded away Cat on his large contract for an expiring contract in Julius Randle, was also a shocker. And I think both fan bases would probably rather this trade not have happened. So the fact that this happened before the season even started took everybody by surprise. Let's break it down. I'm going to give my grades and thoughts on each side here. So for the Knicks, this is definitely going to make them a better offensive team, 100%. They can now go 5 out with 5 really good three-point shooters. Jalen Brunson shot 40% from 3 last year. OG Anunoby shot 39% from 3. Josh Hart did shoot 31% from 3, but was better than that in the playoffs, and he's going to be the worst three-point shooter on this team. Mikal Bridges shot 38% from 3 last year, and Karl-Anthony Towns, as a 7-foot big man, ended up shooting 41% from 3. And over the last 7 years of his career, he has shot above 40% from 3 4 seasons. In the other 2, he shot 39% from 3 and 37% from 3. Since Cat has entered the NBA in 2015, he has been the best shooting big man in all of basketball. And I don't think that's in any question either. He's taking 6-7 threes a night and hitting them at a 40% clip. That is going to optimize this Knicks offense with the pick and roll with Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. They can have a really efficient pick and pop play, as well as Cat was one of the best in that play call system last year under Chris Finch. He's going to go to Tom Thibodeau, where there's going to be some question marks too, right? He was under Tom Thibodeau back when Tibbs was the coach in Minnesota. And you know what? Cat really wasn't good defensively. He was good offensively then, but really wasn't good defensively. But maybe playing alongside OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges can make Cat a better defender. He's an above average rim protector. He's not in the elite tier by any mean, but he's still solid on that end of the floor. And we haven't seen Cat play the center position since the Wolves acquired Rudy Gobert back in 2022. So it's been 2 full years since Cat has played the center spot, and I think that's where he's best utilized. And I'm really excited to see this Knicks lineup with Brunson at the 1, Bridges at the 2, OG at the 3, Josh Hart at the 4, and Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5, because I do think there's also some switchability, versatility with OG Anunoby on the defensive end. I think he can guard 5s out there, and then on offense, you can really space this out, and that's what the Knicks are trying to go for. They're trying to match the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference, who can go 5 out with Drew, White, the Jays, and Kristaps Porzingis, and the Knicks are trying to replicate that. And then they also have 2 elite defenders in Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, who can guard Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So before this trade went down, I thought the Knicks were the second best team in the Eastern Conference behind Boston. And after this trade, I still think they're the second best team in the East. Now, there could be some chemistry issues. Losing Donte DiVincenzo, who could have won Sixth Man of the Year this season, is going to hurt them. They're going to have to ask for a lot out of Miles McBride going into his 4th year. He's going to have to step up as the 6th man for this team. They signed veterans like Cam Payne and Landry Shamet, and maybe they'll step up in their role. Are we going to get anything anything out of Mitchell Robinson this year if he's going to be banged up. You're asking a lot out of Jericho Sims and Tyler Kolek and Precious Achiuwa. The Knicks bench is not going to be great right now. Now, there could be a trade on the horizon. Maybe they move Mitchell Robinson for a Trey Murphy or Grayson Allen. That's just been some things thrown out on Twitter. I don't think that's going to happen, but maybe they trade him for a wing to improve the bench. And when taking all that into consideration, I don't think the Knicks are done. I do think Mitchell Robinson will get traded at some point this year. I'm going to give the Knicks a B+ with this trade. I do think they get better. Julius Randle is not as good of a fit as Karl-Anthony Towns in this offense, and you're really going right up against Boston in the playoffs here. Karl-Anthony Towns can play the center position better than Julius Randle can, but I was someone that was very optimistic of Julius Randle playing the small ball 5, so I'll give it a B+ for the Knicks, but this really hurts you. If you have one single injury to anybody in this starting 5, this is probably going to go down to a C+, just because you're sacrificing a lot by moving DiVincenzo, and Julius Randle was never injury prone before that freak shoulder injury that he fell on in the middle of January. So Karl-Anthony Towns, who has had his fair share of injury-riddled seasons, is going to come at some risk for the Knicks. He's also not on the greatest contract ever. He's going to be making $60+ million later in the 2020s, so you're going to have to take that into effect with the second apron. There's a lot of risk that the Knicks are taking on in this deal. As for the Minnesota Timberwolves, this also is a complete shocker. Like I mentioned before, Karl-Anthony Towns has been there for 9 years. For so many bad Timberwolves teams, he never requested a trade, and they just traded him this year. I kind of feel bad for Cat because I know he wanted to win a title when the Timberwolves finally had the best rosters in the last decade here, in the last 2 decades, since Kevin Garnett having this team with Cat, Gobert, and Anthony Edwards was just in the conference finals. And they go out, they make also, in my opinion, a lateral move going from Cat to Randle and DiVincenzo. And while that definitely improves the bench unit, oh my God, this bench unit is insane. You have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, the 6th Man of the Year winner last year in Naz Reid, whatever you can get out of the rookies in Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham. This is going to be one of the more exciting bench units in all of basketball. I think you're taking a step back with this offensive unit because what Gobert is making and what Randle is making, they're starting. Naz Reid would probably be a better fit than Randle next to Gobert, but I think right now it's going to be Mike Conley at the 1, Anthony Edwards at the 2, Jaden McDaniels at the 3, Randle at the 4, and Gobert at the 5. Now, it could get a little bit more exciting if you move Randle to the 3, have Naz Reid be at the 4 and Gobert at the 5, but you're paying McDaniels all this money, and he's one of the league's best perimeter defenders as well. Do you want to put him off the bench? Maybe this is going to be a point this year where Mike Conley is no longer going to be the starter, and they're going to try Anthony Edwards at the 1, in which I don't think he's ready for that yet. I think this Timberwolves team definitely looked kind of lost when Mike Conley was banged up last season, and that's going to run its risk as well. So in this trade, I'm going to give Minnesota a B. I don't like it as much for Minnesota than I do for the Knicks, but just slightly. I just think for Minnesota, trading Cat really hurts what Minnesota is more than the Knicks trading away Julius Randle. And I know Randle and DiVincenzo embraced New York, but Cat also embraced Minnesota and could have retired as a Timberwolf, and that would have been really cool. And I don't know if they get that much better with this deal because Rudy Gobert has a player option at the end of the season. Julius Randle has a player option at the end of the season. Naz Reid is going to be a free agent. This Minnesota Timberwolves team can look a lot different going forward, and there's a lot of risk with this deal happening. Say it just doesn't work out with Randle in Minnesota and he leaves after a year. You kind of traded Karl-Anthony Towns for 1 year of Dante DiVincenzo, and I'm surprised that they ended up choosing Gobert over Karl-Anthony Towns when it was all said and done. And I'm also shocked that it kind of happened later in the offseason. I thought if we saw Cat or Gobert get moved, it was going to be right in the middle of the offseason. It was going to be at the end of June or the beginning of July. And we see this right at training camp is starting. Apparently, Minnesota did not want any of a Julius Randle Mitchell Robinson package, but when the Knicks put Dante DiVincenzo on the table, that obviously made it a lot more enticing for Minnesota, given how good DiVincenzo was for the Knicks last year in the role he was given. He was a little inconsistent in round number 1 against Philadelphia, but showed up against Indiana in round number 2. As for Karl-Anthony Towns, he was good in rounds 1 and 2, but he was abysmal in round number 3 against Dallas. Minnesota is also going to get Detroit's top 13 protected first round pick this year. I do believe it's going to be in the top 13, so Detroit's going to get it, but then it becomes top 11 protected in 2026, top 9 protected in 2027, and I think at 2027, we're not going to see the Pistons picking in the top 10 anymore, so they're going to get an eventual first round pick out of this deal, which makes this look a little bit better for Minnesota. So at the end of the day, I don't think that this is going to make the Knicks better than the Boston Celtics. I still think they're the second best team in the East, but they're right there with Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and some other teams there. I think Boston is still in its tier of its own. As for Minnesota, I don't think this makes them better than OKC or Dallas right now, unless Anthony Edwards turns into a top 5 player in the league next year. Rudy Gobert does not get played off the floor in the playoffs. Jaden McDaniels can take a step offensively, and Julius Randle can really space the floor for this team, because if Randle is inconsistent once again from 3, having him and Gobert in that front court is going to be a nightmare. That is going to be way too clustered to play in the playoffs, and they're going to have to really move Randle to the bench or Gobert to the bench, and how much they invested into those two players right now, you do not want to do that. So there's a lot of risk for Minnesota here, and like I said, for the Knicks, there's a lot of risk as well, because Cat's going to be making a lot of money going forward. There's a Mikal Bridges contract extension on the horizon, so you're going to run into some second apron issues. You had so many draft picks at the start of the offseason, but now you traded for Cat and Mikal Bridges. The Knicks don't really own much draft capital going forward. And now Miles McBride is your 6th man in New York, which is also a little bit scary as well, because Mitchell Robinson is going to be out till December and January. So yeah, you guys can let me know what you think of this trade down below. I'm going to give the Knicks a B+. I'm going to give Minnesota a B. The Knicks got the best player in this trade, but I don't think by much. I don't think Towns is in a tier of his own than Julius Randle, but he definitely fits this offense better, given that Cat is a proven elite 3-point shooter at the center position. So yeah, Knicks B+, Timberwolves B. Let me know your grades and thoughts about this trade in the comments below. And I just still can't believe this trade happened. This is truly the most random trade we have seen in quite some time. The Knicks just traded for Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns in the same offseason. And then you add in OG Anunoby. That's 3 massive trades all in 2024. And for Minnesota, man, I think they can go back to the conference finals, but I don't know if I feel as confident, but they do have the depth to withstand some injuries. So yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts again in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. Drop a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you were not already. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.